Welcome back to This Week, where I sit down with voices doing the real work to rebuild California from the ground up. My guest today is Oscar Martinez, a proud U.S. Marine Corps veteran, a seasoned law enforcement professional, and a candidate for Los Angeles County Sheriff. Oscar came to this country as a child, served multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and went on to dedicate his life to protecting communities here at home. He served across every major division of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department: patrol, custody, professional standards, public information, and as chief's executive aide. That experience gives him a ground-level understanding of public safety and the leadership it takes to restore trust, discipline, and integrity to the sheriff's office. Oscar is running to bring the department back to its core mission, serving and protecting the people, not political interests. He's called out the current administration for caving to unelected bureaucrats and anti-police activists, and he's offering a bold alternative rooted in constitutional leadership, fiscal discipline, modernization, and unwavering support for deputies on the ground. Welcome, Oscar.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm glad you're out here. I think, I think law enforcement is a big conversation, especially in this state and in Los Angeles specifically because of the years of Democrats essentially being soft on crime or even flipping the narrative, often portraying criminals as victims.
Absolutely.
And like completely forgetting that
this is one of the few states and one of the few cities in the United States that actually creates laws to protect criminals.
It's interesting, right?
That's amazing. That's just, I don't think the founding fathers ever expected that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, what makes a nation is abiding by the laws, right? The moment that you get rid of the rule of law, Democrats love to, they throw that at Trump, but they've actively worked to remove that, to soften that, to dissolve it. And the moment you get rid of that, then all of a sudden you don't have a reason for a nation. Then all of a sudden, my theory is they do that because they're all Marxists. And they want.
Well, I don't know if I can say that, but that's definitely your opinion. But actually, when it comes to the rule of law, I mean, think about it. They actually are using the rule of law. It's just to carry on their own agenda. Whereas before, the rule of law was established to protect everyone, especially the victims of crime. Mm-hmm. But what you're seeing now in California is the opposite. They're using the rule of law to create laws, not only to protect criminals, but sometimes to even re-victimize victims by not giving the victims the rights that they deserve to take their to take the criminals into court. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing them actually weaponize the law. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they're doing. And when I say they, I mean, let's be honest, the legislature is controlled by one party. Mm-hmm. So even if you're a Democrat, I challenge those that are Democrats, registered Democrats, and follow the Democratic Party, is to maybe vote differently, just for once, to see if there's going to be a difference.
I agree. Yeah, especially when it's been like 60 years that they've had super majorities for like decades in the legislature.
Well, super majority started right after Arnold Schwarzenegger, and we've seen the results. Yeah. I mean, 20 years ago, California was nowhere close to what it is now, and I'm a Republican. If that was the Republican Party doing that, I would be like, okay, let me try something else and see what's happening here. Mm-hmm.
And what made you want to run for this? I know I kind of covered some of it, but what was your like moment that the bulb went off, or did you get a calling? How did that come about?
Well, number one, I had many of my colleagues in the sheriff's department, many members of the community that I know at church and whatever have you, and they came to me and they said, listen, we're seeing law enforcement changing. Mm-hmm. We have a sheriff that's pretty much absentee. Mm-hmm. We never see the sheriff. We don't know who this man is. We don't know what his mission is, what his goal is. But he seems a little mysterious, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my peers in law enforcement who know me, who know how I work, who have seen my work ethic and have seen how much I love the sheriff's department, said, we need someone that knows the department now to run. Mm-hmm. We're tired of having what I call recycled candidates. Mm-hmm. We need someone to come in with new idea, fresh blood, and bring this department back to the 21st century. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, well, let me pray about it. I pray about it. And then I asked the one who has to give me the final okay, which is my wife. Yeah. And she said yes.
Yeah, because you guys are kind of going to go together on this journey. She's going to, it's like you choose to run, but she's also technically running too.
And she is. I mean, like right now, she's doing most of the work with the kids, taking the kids to practice, swimming, soccer, whatever have you. And I'm really grateful to have her and to be able to count on her to continue the family life while I'm going around campaigning.
That's beautiful. And it's an interesting moment with law enforcement too. I feel like for the last I think this started before, but it reached its like climax, apotheosis, whatever you want to call it, around 2020. This complete villainization of law enforcement. There was that movement that Democrats don't mention anymore, but they very much were for ACAB. All cops are bad, or whatever else you want to call it.
Yes.
And we've seen such a negative trend as a result. I mean, in LA, the LAPD alone, I've been to neighborhood meetings, and some LAPD officers, they mentioned how in the last 4 years, there's been a 10% decrease in the amount. A lot of guys retired, but the issue is they're not replacing enough officers. And
attrition is not balanced nowadays. You have far more officers and deputies retiring than what we have coming in. And right now, we're not seeing the effect. We're seeing some effects, of course. They talk about it, as you say. But you're not really going to see the effect until a few years from now when the experience finally dies out. We have this concept in law enforcement called 40 by 40, which means that by 2040, we are going to have 40% less officers than what we have now.
Wow.
And we need to prepare for that because it's going to happen. Less people are becoming cops, both men and women. And you see that in a lot of industries nowadays, especially with the role of AI. We are going through this societal change where people are asking themselves, do I really want to do a job for life? People are coming into our career. Well, actually, I won't call it a career. They're coming into a job for 5 to 10 years and then moving on.
Yeah.
Traditionally, in law enforcement, you went in, you stay there, you retire, you did your 25 years, 30 years, and you retire. But you're not seeing that anymore. We're seeing a lot of young kids coming in for 5 years and saying, it's not for me, or I've done enough, let me go try something else. And that's a challenge that I believe our current law enforcement leadership, especially in the sheriff's department, Robert Luna, we're not preparing our department, we're not preparing the community for that.
And what are some of the solutions the LAPD currently is looking at and that you would have for something like that?
Well, it's not just pay. I know there's a lot of talk about there. We got to pay our cops more. That's true. We do have to pay them more, and we have to make sure they have the lifestyle necessary to live in California. But it's not just about pay. It's also about leadership. Right now, you have a lot of chiefs of police, especially chiefs of police, and very few sheriffs like Robert Luna, who are just not out there defending their men and women. And I'm not talking about defending those cops that break the law or break policy, but the ones that are doing their job. You brought up 2020 and the many issues that we had when it came to law enforcement. Our chiefs and our sheriffs were out there apologizing.
Yeah.
And why are you apologizing? Our officers are doing the best that they can right there in the community, protecting the community. What happened in one state doesn't mean it's affecting us here.
Yes.
You need to have the strength. You need to have the virtue to stand up and say, hey, that's not us. This is what we've done. Let me use LAPD as an example. LAPD has come miles upon miles of improvement since the Rodney King incident. It's probably actually a model. Some of the changes that they made internally when it comes to promotions, when it comes to community involvement, and being out there, with the community. And I remember Chief Moore apologizing for what happened in Minneapolis during George Floyd and saying, we're going to look at our policies and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, why? Why are you saying that? You should be out there defending your men and women. No, that's not us. That's not what we do. We're LAPD. We're professionals. What that officer did in Minneapolis, that's over there. That's not here. Instead, we caved in, and a lot of them took a knee.
Yeah, I'd see the play out.
Yes.
It's interesting because it really does have a downstream effect that kind of affects morale. And then how do you expect to bring in more officers when they already feel like not just put down by the media, but they go around to different neighborhoods and communities and they're flipped off, they're cussed out, they're helping somebody, and that person is like,
But let me clear the narrative on that one as far as the media. If you look at the latest Gallup poll of the most trusted institutions in the United States, the top 3 are law enforcement, small business, and the military. The military has always been number 1. Since they started the poll, I believe. Followed closely by small businesses and law enforcement. Those are the top 3 trusted institutions in the United States.
That's great.
At the bottom 3, the United States Congress, the United States Senate, and the media. That's the Gallup poll.
Yeah.
So I find it it's funny when the media is telling the world that law enforcement is not trusted by the community.
Yeah.
That is a very false narrative. And again, going back to the leadership of law enforcement should be out there saying that not only to the troops so that morale goes up, but also to the community, saying We're always going to work for the trust of the community. But let me remind you, we are one of the most trusted institutions.
Yeah.
And I also like to tell people, law enforcement is the last entity in government that's still responsive to we the people. I challenge you right now to call the IRS and try to get a live person before the end of the day.
It won't happen.
It's in their policy.
Yeah.
It won't happen. Just do it right here in the city of LA. Call City Hall. Try to get a hold of a live person for a permit for a new business.
Will not happen.
Not happen. You call 911, someone picks up the phone right away.
100%.
So when people say, well, not people, well, some people will tell you, we need to defund law enforcement. Tell them, be careful what you ask for. Because if you defund the one entity that's still the one government entity that's still responsive to we the people, we may lose our government. And that's another reason why I'm running.
And that's such a great point all around everything you said. The point about defunding, my curiosity with that is, it's purely ideological, and it's pushed specifically by Democrats and the far left wing of their party. How do you, from your position, how do you push back against that? People who have been so indoctrinated to believe that the only solution to our problems is to further destabilize society by doing what you said, effectively, dismembering the one body that we have that works.
I like to tell people to go back to Baltimore. I don't know if you remember Baltimore, long before George Floyd had some issues with the law enforcement officers, with the gentleman that died in the back of the police van. And that
I think I remember. Was it Castillo? Or?
No, it was a male black African American, and I just can't remember the name right now. But 3 officers were indicted, and they were actually charged with murder. And eventually, they were all found innocent. But that was the first movement to defund the police, long before George Floyd. And we saw the results right away. The police was defunded. The police officers themselves decided there's certain parts of the city that we're not going to go to. And those parts of the city, within weeks, were at City Hall begging for the police to come back. And those were African-American communities and Hispanic communities. The minority that these activists are saying we need to protect from law enforcement. So that goes to show you right there that when you defund law enforcement, you're not affecting your gated communities. You're affecting the very same people you're saying you're protecting from the cops. They need us because they have no one else. One of the biggest and saddest concepts in our society today is the lack of fathers, especially in the African American community. There's an epidemic of lack of fatherhood, and they need cops more than anyone else. So I challenge those activists to show me an experiment that worked with our law enforcement. Because since the beginning of civilization, we had warriors that protected those who could not protect themselves.
That's so well put. It makes me also think about the leadership in this city, and I've seen several circumstances where, from Karen Bass to Governor Newsom, they've basically done everything they could to tie the hands of our law enforcement, and instead of allowing them to do what they do best, they neuter them. How do you deal with politicians like that?
Well, that's the beauty about the sheriff's office. The sheriff is elected, and if I may to explain to your listeners, the office of the sheriff is elected. The United States of America is the only country in the entire world that allows we the people to elect the man or woman who is going to enforce the law. There is no other concept like that. Of all the elections that we have, from the water board to the school board to the tax franchise board to the governor and the president, the sheriff is the only person that we can elect to enforce the law. Think about that. That's powerful. So as an elected sheriff, I couldn't care less what Karen Bass or the governor want. My deputies are going to do what I tell them to do.
That's good.
And in my case, I'm going to tell them to go out there and fight crimes in accordance with the United States Constitution. So we're not going to be out there, violating people's rights. Absolutely not. There's this whole thing that we protect bad cops in law enforcement, that we have this secret society. Let me tell you something. Nobody wants bad cops out faster than us, the good cops. So I have absolutely no problem being transparent about that. But as your elected sheriff, I don't need the mayor's approval. I don't need the governor's approval. Heck, I don't need the president's approval. Once I get my budget, I'm there to protect the people, and I will do that.
My next question would be then, with the whole sanctuary status, right? How do you, because that's one of the things that isn't that. I mean, Karen Bass has made it evident that, like, what side she's on, that she does not want to allow our local law enforcement to comply or to work with ICE, right? And back in the day, it used to be where ICE would just I think it was LAPD would arrest somebody. They would see that they had a detainer on them, like a deportation thing. They would just call ICE. ICE would pick them up at the jail and take them back. It wouldn't be like a public display. But Democrats have made it where now it's a public display.
Yes.
So, I mean, would you work with ICE, and how would that go?
To the defense of Karen Bass, it's actually not up to Karen Bass. It's a state law. So she has to comply with it. And that's called SB 54, the Values Act, otherwise known as a sanctuary law.
Yeah.
So it's a state law. The other thing I want to hit before I explain what I would do about it is there's no such thing in the legal world as a sanctuary city. That does not exist. It's something that, again, California politicians completely made up. But in the legal world, for example, the city of LA won't be able to go into federal court and defend sanctuary city status because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is federal law. You have to abide by federal law. So this is what SB 54 did. Until 2018, we were able to do exactly what you said. Work with ICE inside the jails, both LAPD and the county jail, which is run by the sheriff. Mr. De Leon, Senator De Leon back then, decided to come up with this law to protect immigrants from Donald Trump. Then he created SB 54, which was passed. It became law January 1st, 2018. Now, that law pretty much says you are not allowed to work with ICE. You cannot communicate with them. You cannot share intelligence with them. And you definitely are not going to turn over certain illegal immigrants to ICE. There is a flaw in that law because back then, I said it. I was just a regular citizen. But then actually Sheriff Jim McDonough, who's not the chief of LAPD, he brought this up back then. He said, if you do that, if you prohibit me from working with ICE inside the jails, you're going to see ICE in the community, making arrests, probably making some false arrests because they're not able to identify people the way we can in the jails. And they laughed at him. They said, that's never going to happen. Well, it's happening.
Yeah.
Elections have consequences. So as your sheriff, I am going to be a strong advocate to amend SB 54. I am not calling for the entire repeal of the law. We need to amend it to allow the sheriff's office and all your LAPD and other agencies that have their own jails, not many of them do, we need to be able to work with ICE inside the jails. By working with ICE, we turn over criminal illegal aliens that committed state crimes, by the way. They're not going to jail for immigration law. They're going there to serve their time for breaking state law and or federal law. Once they're done, we give them over to ICE. We don't release them back to the community. I am an immigrant. I came to this country as a child. We struggled. We barely had any money. I remember going to bed hungry. But we have laws in this country. And there's a difference between immigration and illegal immigration. SB 54 does not protect immigrants. SB 54 protects criminals. Like we were talking about earlier, the only state that creates law to protect criminals.
Yeah.
When we release them, they don't go to Beverly Hills. They don't go to Ranchos Palos Verdes.
Yeah.
They go back to Boyle Heights. They go back to East LA. They go back to the very same community that SB 54 claims to protect. So we need to amend the law, and we need to be able to work with ICE inside the jails. Safer for the deputies, safer for the federal agents, and safer for the suspects because none of us are armed inside the jails. And you don't have to worry about ICE going out into the community and doing the raids that you see right now.
That's a good point. I definitely appreciate it. I think that the city does have to really cooperate more with
Absolutely.
ICE. I think it's been a dereliction of duty, unfortunately, from both the governor and the mayor, and allowing this situation to get to this level. But
if I may add, it's a dereliction of duty that the elected sheriff of this county is not saying anything about it.
Yeah,
the elected sheriff, for the Constitution of the state of California, the elected sheriff is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, and for the sheriff not to address this issue, that's a dereliction of duty.
I do want to pivot a little bit. You mentioned something, your background being an immigrant. I want to dive into your story a little bit. How you came to America. You came as a child.
Yes.
How was that? How was that experience? Coming to America.
I was 9 years old, and I still remember the day as if it was yesterday. We landed in JFK in New York, and I remember coming out of the airport, seeing the skyscrapers and the yellow taxi,
cabs, yeah.
And it was like it felt like being in a movie. I still get the chills thinking about it because here I came from the Dominican Republic, a third world country, and I came to, as we say in the military, the land of the big PX. I finally saw the American dream, and I remember as a child thinking, and like, wow, I'm in America. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, I didn't know about all the chances and opportunities back then, but I knew it was going to be a better life. Just looking at the cars and the roads and everything. Like, this is America.
Yeah.
So I came to America, grew up, raised mainly by my grandmother. Again, we didn't have much, but we had a lot of faith.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, there's a little tip for your listeners.
Yeah.
I actually first went to the seminary. I was going to be a priest,
Oh,
a
wow.
Catholic priest. Yes, a Roman Catholic priest. I'm married with 2 kids, so obviously that didn't work out,
Went a
right?
different route, yeah.
Correct. So then I joined the closest thing to the Catholic Church, which is the Marine Corps.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was right before 9/11, so just be a Marine, go on a Navy ship and go see the world, right?
Yeah.
Well, 9/11 happened, and we had a blast, but it was not the kind of blast
Yeah.
I was expecting. Multiple combat tours to Iraq, Afghanistan, and I learned the value of leadership. It was hard, it was difficult. I am no hero, but I got the chance to serve among many heroes. There's many of our boys who never came back, so I remember them, and in their honor, here I am still serving. But I am very grateful for the United States Marine Corps. I learned leadership, I learned sacrifice, and I learned the value of having good leaders.
Well, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
And especially nowadays, well, I have seen figures that enlistment is going up, but for a while there, it got scary. So I think that nowadays it's even more valued because there's so few people are going into it. So
Well, the Marine Corps, if I may say, is the only branch that annually meets its goal.
really,
And that goes back to leadership. The Marine Corps gives you a sense of it gives you a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging, and it's a constant leader. No offense to my Army listeners, I love you guys, but if you look at the Army talks about soldiers and officers. I think it's 2 different things. You never hear about Marine enlistment, Marine officers. Everybody is a Marine. And that's that culture, that value of the culture and the leadership and what it promotes. And I want to take that and bring it to the sheriff's departments to bring back morale and let our troops know we value you, we support you. And by doing that, because when the officers and the deputies feel supported, they're going to be out there, be proactive, and protect the community.
And how do the Marines prepare you for a job in law enforcement?
Well, it gives you discipline. It tells you, hey, no matter how hard it gets, you keep going. You never give up. You always look out after your man or your woman, obviously, and you just keep going. You stay educated. You continue learning. You never stop learning. It just promotes professionalism. And I believe I took that and brought it into law enforcement, and it has helped me a lot. I've seen a lot of men and women struggle when they come into law enforcement, as we say, when they come into the force. But I didn't have that issue. I came in, and the police academy was super easy for me. I didn't have an issue.
I mean, you're a Marine already, so
well, I just related back to the Marine Corps. It was just nothing hard, and if when the moments where it was a few, a little bit hard, I just remember back to the Marine Corps and like I got to make the Marine Corps proud. Up to this day, you hear me say here and there, this is not what the Marine Corps would want me to do. I don't think my wife ever wants to hear that again, but I still say it.
Well, that's good that you stick to that. As far as I know, the physical standards, I think the Marines have one of the toughest, right?
One of the toughest for the regular forces, but obviously, you have your special forces like the Navy SEALs, Army Delta, Army Rangers. That's far more difficult. That's way far more difficult. But as far as just a regular entry into the military, I would say yes, the Marine Corps will be one of the top ones.
Yeah. And how was that? How were your years as a police officer? I mean, I imagine you saw a lot. A lot of it must have inspired you to then later pursue, this calling to be sheriff. You saw so many different sides of what it's like to be a police officer. Can you give us a little bit of an understanding for somebody like myself who, I admire cops. I really do. It's a tough job.
It is.
I mean, it's a job where you are putting your life on the line without knowing what is going to happen. And you like we discussed earlier, there are segments of the population and the media that will literally crucify you because you're doing your job.
Absolutely.
So you have to be ready for not only the physical, but the emotional and the social, and even the aspect of what comes back home, right? So what's something that you saw on the job from seeing all of these different sides that a person like myself would know?
There's a lot of suffering in this country that most people are just not aware. There's a lot of hunger. There's a lot of people that are alone in this country that we don't think of when it comes to the United States. I've seen houses, the inside of houses, that are pretty much third world standards that you would never imagine in the United States. I've seen children, 8, 10 years old, that pretty much have raised themselves.
Wow.
again, here in the United States. And we don't think about these things. And we see it every day in law enforcement. And most people just will never imagine that. I strongly believe if it's legal to do so, that we need to be able to just record law enforcement on a daily basis and what they see and post that. I'll give you a quick example. The American Civil Liberties Unit for the longest called for law enforcement to have body-worn cameras because they can't trust us. You know, we got to have camera. Well, we got the cameras.
Yeah.
Now they don't want us to have the cameras.
Because it flips the narrative.
It flips the narrative. It goes to show like, no, you know, look what this guy is doing. In this incident, he was helping this child.
Yeah.
In this other instance, the guy that you said was going to be the next, you know, Einstein, who was going to go to medical school, actually had a knife and was trying to stab our deputies.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that if we're able to show the world what our law enforcement officers go through, what we've seen on a daily basis, I think that the media would change its mind about what they think about law enforcement. So to answer your question more directly, I've seen a lot of suffering, a lot of loneliness that we just don't picture in the United States. I think most people think everybody else is just like them. They have the SUV, they go to the soccer game, they go to In-N-Out and so forth. You'll be surprised how many people in this country cannot do that. And the only contact that they have with the rest of the world is law enforcement because they either become suspects or victims of a crime.
Interesting. And from your perspective, how do you pull these people out of this situation? I mean, obviously it's beyond the scope of your job, but I mean, you said you've seen enough of this. What would be a way? Well,
it goes back to what I've been saying since the beginning of my campaign. We expect law enforcement to fix in 5 minutes what has been going on for the last 20 years. And it's just not going to happen. I'll use the example of homelessness. Of course, as your elected sheriff, I'm going to do my best to eradicate homelessness. But at the end of the day, homelessness is not a law enforcement problem. My deputies can go out there right now and arrest every homeless person. They'll be back on the streets the next day.
Yeah.
It is a political problem. The political class is going to have to come up with a plan with the assistance of the sheriff, of course, and decide this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to affect changes when it comes to homelessness. The fatherless thing that I was talking about earlier. That's not really a law enforcement issue. So law enforcement alone is not going to be able to fix all those problems from society. It's going to take politicians to come in and have the strength, the will, and the desire to make it happen. So to answer your question directly, I will work with those entities to do my best, whether they're Democrat or Republican. When it comes to public safety, I'll be there on the table to tell you my piece and tell you what I think we need to do to remove those problems from our society.
You're a bit of a political outsider, right?
This is my first time running for office.
Yeah.
Yes.
What advantages do you think that gives you going into not just the election, but the job?
Well, I don't have a bad record, not yet anyway. So that's a plus. And it goes to show that I'm not here to be a career politician. I was doing just fine in my career with my family, with the job, with promotions. I was doing just fine. I didn't have to do this. But I do believe I have to do this for the sake of my fellow officers and the public safety in this county.
And what's one big issue that you see in LA as far as public safety goes that we could solve relatively quickly, like let's say within your first 6 months to a year in office?
Well, it's going to take more than 6 months to a year for pretty much to fix anything in government because that's how slow government moves. But here's one thing that I would definitely fix within the first year. You're not going to have a silent sheriff anymore. You're going to have a sheriff that's going to be out there advocating for the community. We don't have that right now. And as a matter of fact, if you looked at all the elected officials that we have in both the city and the county, public safety is not a priority. It's just not. Whether it be the city council for the city or the mayor or the board of supervisors for the county, they have all these little projects that they want to do. Racism, the environment, homelessness, criminals. Well, public safety is not one of them. There's no one out there speaking on behalf of public safety, which is amazing because that is the number one thing that's affecting our communities right now. The smash and grabs.
Yeah.
The open drug air use that you can see just coming right out here.
Yeah.
The DUIs. They tell you murders are going down. It's true, murder has gone down. But that's because of medicine. But the assaults that used to cause many of those murders are going up. But they don't tell you that. So I strongly believe that we need someone in government, I don't care what level of government, that's out there speaking about what our communities are going through.
I also believe that, and this is my personal theory, that some of the crime that they're talking about that's going down is partly because it's going unreported. Because I know for a fact a few different precincts throughout town, like because there've been so many cutbacks on not just staff but budgets and everything, they can't operate past sundown. Past like they close at like 8 p.m.
Correct.
So,
and you brought up a good point. I was actually talking about it yesterday in my another interview when they talk about, well, crime is going down. It's like, no, it's not. The reporting of crime is going down. Another issue that you have, all agencies report their crime statistics to the FBI, and the FBI used to use the UCR method, which is a Uniform Crime Reporting System. Well, the FBI changed 2 years ago, and now they're using the NIBRS version, which is the National Incident Something Report. And pretty much what that does, UCR used to capture the most serious crime. So, for example, if you had a robbery, the person was punched in the head and the wallet was stolen. Well, the robbery was the only one that was reported.
gotcha.
The punching in the head, which is an assault, never went reported. So now they went to the NIBRS system to capture all those crimes within the same incident.
Gotcha.
But the problem is a lot of agencies have not caught up with the technology. So they're actually not reporting their statistics. Or if they are reporting their statistics, it's not getting captured. So that, in addition with the community not reporting the crime, has added to the drop in crime.
Yeah.
And the reason why people are just not reporting crime is not so much the staff cuts, because that is true. But you have to remember George Gascon, who was the DA that just left us, thank God.
Yeah, ultra lefty.
I mean, I think he was beyond lefty. I mean, he was straight Marxist. And the biggest scandal that George Gascon did to our community was he caused people to lose trust in the system. So people just stopped calling. Business owners who were getting robbed on a daily basis, they just stopped calling the cops, because the cops would come in and say, hey, this is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Pretty much George Gascon was not prosecuting anything. That was the biggest scandal. You know, a scandal, the meaning of a scandal is when you cause damage to the institution.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. He caused so much damage to the criminal justice system that people just pretty much stopped believing in the system. And I want to add to that Robert Luna, who's the sheriff, called George Gascon a friend and a mentor. So that should tell you where the sheriff is coming from.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And you see with the home burglaries too, they're going up everywhere, and people are robbing broad daylight.
Hey, broad daylight. You never used to see that before.
Yeah.
You see all these videos out there of people, having a nice dinner or a nice lunch in the open restaurants here, and guys just coming in and taking their property right there in broad daylight.
Yeah.
There's no fear anymore because, again, the scandal that were caused by George Gascon.
And I've seen also so many videos of the smash and grabs and the lootings that are happening. They're also following a lot of the meetups that are happening, where people meet up and do the car where they drift and all that stuff, and then afterwards they loot the stores nearby. It's like,
or even there's places where, like Walgreens, they'll go into Walgreens, steal stuff from Walgreens. They don't even run. They just go outside of Walgreens and start selling it right there.
Wow.
That should tell you the respect that they have for the law.
Yeah.
And that needs to change. And it's not going to take multiple arrests. It'll take a few, and then the word will go out. And I use, for example, Culver City. Culver City has a great police department. You don't hear too many crimes in Culver City because they have a very active police department.
Yeah.
That goes to show what happens when your officers and your deputies are proactive.
And it's so interesting you make that point, because in one of these meetings that I went to, these neighborhood meetings, this guy who lives, it was with the LAPD, this guy who lives in Studio City, his home got burglarized and his car got stolen in it. And he had a tracker in his car. So he found his car and he started following the guys, and he called 911, and they're like, look, we're kind of backed up. We can't have somebody come out. And he followed the guys for 2 hours with 911 on the phone. When they got to Van Nuys, they were out there in 5 minutes.
That's it.
It was so crazy.
That goes to show you what, the differences in the leadership of the different agencies, but within the agencies, within the different bureaus and divisions.
Yeah.
And that's why you need a strong elected sheriff. The sheriff of LA County has he has the biggest microphone when it comes to law enforcement and public safety in this state. Think about how the strong message out there will be if the sheriff comes out and said, if you do X, Y, and Z, smash and grabs, this is how we're going to get you. We're going to follow you. We're going to find whatever ring. We're going to find the ringleaders, and we're going to bring you to justice. Think about how that will make the business owners feel like, oh, finally, law enforcement has my back. But we don't have that. Going back to what you were saying earlier, we have no elected official, with the exception of District Attorney Hockman, who finally got rid of George Gascon and is trying to, to correct the system. It's going to take a few years. He's not going to be able to do it in 6 months to a year, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
But he's doing a great job.
Yeah, and you see the effect of having policies like that, because when the riots were happening downtown, I think it was like a matter of a 2 or 3 days, Bill Asaley came out and said, I will start looking at the organizations that are funding these. The next day, stopped.
It stopped.
Yeah.
Again, it goes to show when you have someone get in front of a microphone and showing confidence in leadership, people will follow, including criminals, because they don't want to get caught.
Yeah, and that's so important to have, because, like you mentioned, having trust in just the fact that you can do business without getting burglarized, or that you can just walk on the street without getting assaulted or something's going to happen to you. That's so vital, and you can only achieve that with proper law enforcement.
Correct. And it's affected me personally. My son, he loves Legos. So, and we go and buy a Lego set before he could go and touch him and see the boxes. Poor kid can't do that now. There's a big either gate or screen.
Yeah.
So don't tell me, because Gavin Newsom likes to say this, well, it's not affecting you. Yes, it is affecting the average person.
Yeah.
My wife cannot, buy her hair products anymore.
Yeah.
She has to wait for someone to come and open the little, whatever, the set.
Most stores, they got to ring the bell, they got to come in.
That's third world level.
Yeah.
That's why I lived in the third world. I was in the Marine Corps, where I was stationed in different embassies throughout the world. That's third world level. That's where California is at now. And it needs to change. That's another reason why I'm running.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it goes into, I grew up in Brazil, so I'm pretty familiar too with some of the rot that can happen in third world countries like that. And a lot of it goes into something that you're talking about. It's like low trust societies. Everything starts eroding.
Correct.
From the fact that you don't have basic trust. And in Brazil, it's even worse, because in Brazil, it's like, so the police force itself is very corrupt, and they may seem like they want to help you, but you may literally get robbed by the police too. So then that's really low trust.
100%. Yes. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and it's the same thing. Like, if you get robbed, you don't want to call the cops, because then you're going to get robbed again. Yeah. So I completely understand where you're coming from. But I tell people, to remember the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Yeah. What's the number one? Safety. You got to have the safety. You're not going to. Law enforcement drives the economy. I know we like to say real estate drives the economy. No. Law enforcement drives the economy, because you can be the best real estate agent. You're not going to sell that house if that neighborhood is known as not being safe. Yeah. When law enforcement is allowed to do its job, and when the district attorney prosecute crimes, businesses are going to come in. People are going to come in and start buying things. They're going to go out and have dinner. They're going to go out at night, the nightlife, and enjoy their life. So you got to have strong law enforcement. If you don't have a strong law enforcement, if you don't have the safety net, nothing's going to come after that. Take a look at Oakland. Oakland is the best example. The law enforcement agency of Oakland PD, it's pretty much have been destroyed by the left-wing nuts. And nothing is moving in Oakland. It may declare bankruptcy here pretty soon.
That's crazy. And that's interesting that you mentioned that too, because just this week I saw a video. It wasn't necessarily Oakland. It was San Francisco Police Department.
Pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. But it was a video of a man. The police patrol car is parked. There are two officers in the car, and there's this man just deranged, like smashing the car. And they don't come out of the car. They don't do anything. And it's kind of bizarre to watch, because this man is attacking police officers, which is a crime, right? And they're not doing anything. Then I looked it up. I was like, why are they not responding? Apparently, they're so woke out there that they have some kind of non-engagement policy with certain crimes. Unless it's like a violent crime to whatever degree, they will not engage with it.
Well, and I want to make something very clear about that. It's not that the law enforcement officers don't want to do anything. Yeah. It's just they can't. Yeah. Our officers have to follow the law. And the law, like in that example, is stacked against them. So they can go out there and I can tell you right now, they can go out there and handle that business right away. Yeah. But then they're going to be prosecuted. Yeah. And when they own leadership on law enforcement, like I said earlier, when the actual leadership of law enforcement is they're not defending their officers, the community suffers. So I know a lot of people would tell me, you only worry about the morale of your cops. No. When the cops don't have high morale and they don't feel protected, they're not going to be out there protecting you.
And are there any laws outside of sanctuary laws, like we discussed? Are there any laws in the books in LA County in this area that prevent cops from doing their jobs that would be of interest to completely remove?
No, I don't think there's any laws per se. You know, it here in LA County, it comes down mainly to the policies. What kind of policies are in place, of what the officers and the deputies can and cannot do. So, for example, the use of force policy has a big effect on how our deputies are going to react, because if the policy is so restrictive, they're just not going to go hands-on. Like the example you brought with the guy on top of his car, that's not going to happen in LA County, though. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
But that's the problem. If the officers feel like, well, if I do my job, I'm going to get in trouble, well, that's not affecting me, I'm not going to do anything about it. So I don't think there's any laws other than SB 54 that's actually affecting our law enforcement officers here. I think it's mainly the policies of the different department. Yeah,
and this just reminded me of something which is kind of it goes a bit beyond the scope of the job you're running for, but I think it's something that concerns all Californians in the sense that there are a lot of home burglaries happening, a lot of smash and grabs. And I saw this case 2 days ago. I was actually surprised because so I think 3 or 4 guys, it was 2 separate cases, 3 or 4 guys, I think it was in Sherman Oaks or maybe in Toluca Lake. It was in that area where all the robberies are happening, right? And
that's where the money's at.
Yeah, exactly. So there were 2 separate incidents. In one incident, the guys jumped over the gate, and the homeowner saw them on a Ring camera, called the cops, and then the 3 guys left. And then I think when the cops arrived, they said, well, we can't really get them for a home burglary. It just, or not even, I think it was trespassing or something that they said.
Yes.
And then the second case, which I thought was like, honestly, I was surprised this happened in California. He didn't get prosecuted, but he shot one of the guys who broke into his house.
Yes.
Do you know this case?
I know both of the cases you're talking about. The first one, you can see them coming up on the driveway. And then the second one, he used a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was surprised because the Democrats in the state have been trying so hard to make self-defense like that, like illegal, where the criminal can essentially prosecute you for defending your home.
Correct.
Even if it's like the math, the way it works is like you have to prove that you had a sense of danger before you. It's not enough that they're like in your property, right?
Well, they have to be inside your house. So the way it works right now, and again, law enforcement has nothing to do with this, just the way the law is written, and it's up to the prosecutors. If they're inside your house, by all means, defend yourself, protect yourself. You really have to think about it if they're running away and they're outside your house. Depending where you live, whether it be LA County or another county, I don't think you have to worry about in Kern County. Yeah. But you're San Francisco, you're LA County. Depending where you live, if that person is outside your house, you're really going to have to justify. You're really going to have to justify as to why you shot that person. Because the way most politicians would see it is there's no longer a threat. The person was running away.
Gotcha.
Now I know what you're thinking. Yeah. Well, I got to catch him. He needs to face justice. But you have to think about the law. And if you want to go in and do that, that's fine. But I recommend you get a really good attorney after you do that.
And what if he's running away with your stuff?
No, not for property.
Really?
He's running away with your child, by all means.
Then you can shoot him.
I didn't say you can shoot him.
Okay.
But I think you'll be justified more.
You'll be justified.
As far as your stuff, property,
no.
Not in the state of California, no. In Florida, yes. Not in the state of California. Florida has it's your castle. Stand your ground. Your house is your castle. California doesn't have that.
Even if it's a non-lethal shot, like you hit him in the leg?
Well, if it's non-lethal, you don't have to, I don't think there's nothing for you to worry about.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I'm speaking strictly using a firearm, a lethal firearm. Like I said, absent your life being in danger at the moment, you're going to have a hard time justifying why you shot somebody outside your house while they were running away from you.
Well, a non-lethal shot, like a shot, like you shoot them in the leg instead of like on the torso or somebody where...
Oh, you mean like using a firearm to shooting in a non-vital area?
Yeah.
No.
It's still the same thing.
Yes, if you use a firearm in California, you better justify your reasons. Again, if it's inside your house, I want to say you're going to be okay. Obviously, every situation is different. But outside... I don't think so. I wouldn't. If I were you, my advice to you, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And let's say in one of those scenarios, how would that process work out? Would the police have to file charges, or would this be the DA that comes after?
We will file charges. So anytime you use your firearm, we will take a report. and most likely we're going to take your gun too. We'll take your gun into evidence. You may not be arrested. I'm not saying you will be arrested, but you will be named in the report. We'll present the evidence and our report to the district attorney, and it's up to the district attorney to file. But it's not as common as people think. Even George Gascon tried to do it. He wasn't really successful. At the end of the day, you do have the right to defend yourself. So it's not as common as people think in California.
Yeah,
the ones that you see in the news, those are here and there. But like I said, it's not as common. But the reason why we take that report and collect all the evidence is it shows that we're neutral.
Gotcha.
We're neutral. We're not doing favors. Let me tell you something. And I've seen it, even if a cop does it, we still take a report. We take the gun. We take all the evidence, and we present it to the district attorney. So even a cop off duty and does that at his house, we're going to do the same process, and we leave it up to the DA. We do not decide what gets prosecuted or not. The district attorney makes that decision.
Interesting. Yeah,
that's why it's important.
Yeah, to have that differentiation.
And not only that, it's important to vote for the district attorney. We're seeing the difference with Hockman. It's the same thing with the sheriff's office. It is very important that we elect the proper law enforcement public safety team in order to protect our communities.
And I guess my next question would be, I want to pivot to something a little different. This last week, I actually interviewed a first responder and a former law enforcement officer, and they both talked about the mental health aspect of being a police officer and how how that can truly be draining. I mean, it's a stressful job, right?
Yes.
Do you have any specific policies or things that you've been thinking about of ways to help your men and women?
Absolutely. If you look at my website, since the beginning of my campaign, I've talked about employee wellness and mental health. Mental health is a huge issue, not only in law enforcement right now, but also in the military. Both the military and law enforcement are seeing a record number of suicides every year, and it's really, really sad. And I think one of the reasons is that culture sometimes doesn't allow us to come out and say, I need help. Number one, as a leader, to answer your question, is I'm going to make sure that all my employees know asking for help does not make you weak. Obviously, we have to go through a legal process because you are out there with a gun and a badge. So we got to make sure you're okay. But we're going to get you the help that you need. But in order for us to do that, the troops have to know that the leadership is out there giving you the help that you need. Right now, we don't really have that. So I'm going to make sure we have a proper mechanism for those employees that need help, that need mental health help. And another thing that many cities and states offer is not yet that common here in California is mental health leave. There's countries, for example, Australia, where law enforcement officers can go on sabbatical. If we can financially, that's something that I would definitely love to look at. Sometimes you need a break. Like I said before, we see the worst of society on a daily basis. Things that most people will never imagine. In fact, when I tell them, oh, this is what I saw today, it's like, that's not true. You're exaggerating.
Wow.
That doesn't happen in the United States. No, yes, it does happen. I've seen kids starving. I've seen wives completely beat up, in a domestic violence incident. I've seen some bad traffic accidents because of DUI. And that's not just me. Any law enforcement officer have seen these things. So we see the worst in society. Child molesters and so forth that we have to arrest, that we have to talk to. You need that mental health break. And right now, we don't have that. In fact, we tell you to suck it up and deal with it. That doesn't work. And that's coming from a guy who fought 2 wars for this country.
Yeah, it definitely is something that I think that for the departments around the country, not just here in California, I feel like California is better than most other states. But I think around the country, you're going to have to deal with, because I did see those figures that the suicide rates are through the roof for people in this profession. So if we care, the narratives are so messed up, but if we care about our society, we should care about the folks who are ensuring that it exists.
Absolutely. And, my advice to your listeners out there is, because a lot of times the public really doesn't know how to interact with law enforcement. Most people only interact with law enforcement when they get pulled over. Yeah. And that's usually about 6 minutes, 10 minutes tops. But when you see a cop out there, just say thank you. If it's safe to do so, to approach him, just say thank you. When you don't get what you want, what you're asking from law enforcement, understand we have to work within the boundaries of the law. We can't just make it up. I remember as a young deputy going to many calls for service where the neighbor would say, my neighbor did X, Y, and Z. Go there and arrest him. Well, there's this thing called the Constitution, man. I can't just go in there and arrest him.
You need a warrant, right?
I need a warrant. I need to establish that there's a crime.
Yeah.
If there's an emergency, I can go in there and arrest him. But this is loud music. This is not an emergency.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people many times expect something from law enforcement that we just can't do legally.
Mm-hmm. And what would be something that like a citizen, like the lady you mentioned, or anybody who's being like on a traffic stop, that could help them understand how to, deal with that situation? Not that it should be dealt with. I think a lot of the times, if you're just calm and collected and you just follow what the officer does, you're fine, right? But there's so much disinformation out there, especially on the internet, on TikTok. You get all these activists, these coalitions, like putting out information. Oh, you got to do this. You can't. You're a sovereign citizen. You're this.
No. It's very simple. Do whatever the officer is telling you to do.
Yeah.
When it's legal to do so. 99.9% of the time, it's legal. Mm-hmm. If you believe that the officer is wrong, by all means, you have the right to believe that. When you sign a ticket, which we call a citation, you're not saying you're guilty. Mm-hmm. You're promising that you're going to go to court. Mm-hmm. Go to court and plead your case. I was a traffic officer. Mm-hmm. I actually was a DUI expert. Yeah. That's all I did, mainly as a deputy sheriff. I used to go to court, and I lost cases. Mm-hmm. I either got the law wrong, or I failed to annotate something. I forgot to record something. But be it as it may, the time to give your grievances, give your complaints, and look for solutions and corrections is at the courthouse, not the streets. Yeah. Arguing with the cop, fighting the cops, that's not going to help you. It's just not going to help you. By doing that, you're going to go from a simple traffic violation, which is an infraction, to 69 PC, 69 of the Penal Code, which is assault on a peace officer. Yeah. That's a felony. There's no need for that. If you believe the officer is wrong, take him to court. Take him or her to court and let the judge decide.
Yeah, it's there's just so much around it. I think that the narrative has just gotten so out of control, and unfortunately, rationality left the room. Basically, a lot of people, and I think it's also an intended or unintended thing that cops unfortunately have to deal with, where there's somebody who is clearly seeking the conflict so they can get some kind of attention or media resolve.
Well, you have to understand this. The ones that are driving today, you're 16, 18 years old. Mm-hmm. They grew up in the last 5 years hearing that cops are evil, racist, and they're going to kill you. Mm-hmm. Literally, that's it. Yeah. You know, remember the whole heads up?
Yeah. Heads up, don't shoot, or I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. Correct. They grew up believing that cops are evil and they're going to kill you. So again, that's where law enforcement leadership comes into play. We need to take our own story and tell our story, because the media is not doing a great job at it.
And how do you change that narrative directly with those kids? Do you participate in after-school programs? Do you do like different things to involve them with law enforcement? I've seen programs like that where you'll see police officers come out and talk to children or do activities with them. I've seen certain nonprofits do stuff where they like skateboard. You have police officers skateboarding with the kids, and that, I think that helps humanize law enforcement a lot.
100%. But another thing is social media. Mm-hmm. Those 18, 16-year-olds that we're just talking about, where are you going to find them? You're going to find them in social media. They don't watch CNN. They don't watch Fox. We need to sell our own story. When we have a good story, something great that our officers did, let's get out there and sell it. Don't wait for the media to tell the world, because guess what? They're not going to do it. We do it. You show that video. This is one of my deputies right here. This car was just involved in an accident. The car is burning. He went into that car and he saved this baby from the car. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, he's right here. You show the video, and he just wants to tell you why he did it and what was going through his head.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. Why we have so many great stories out there, but we don't sell our story. Again, part of the culture that we have to be humble. But no, those days are over. Get out there, share your story, tell the community the good things that you did.
And one of the ways that, I grew up watching Cops. That show was so good.
Yes.
It was such a good show.
We need it back.
Yeah, we need Cops back. It was such a good show because not only did it humanize the cops, you saw them in these situations, you saw their sense of humor. There was a little bit of like a subversive, sense of humor to all.
You gotta have dark humor in this job.
Exactly.
If you don't have dark humor, you're talking about mental health.
Yeah.
If you don't have dark humor, you're not going to survive this job.
And the brilliant thing was that it mixed all of that with, like, you got to see the consequences of, of doing certain behavior. And you got to see also how the police interact in the real world, because they were it was body cam footage before body cam footage.
Correct.
Basically. And nowadays, I think I actually do follow the LAPD on YouTube. I see they post relatively consistently. I don't know about the other departments throughout town, but I know that they share a lot of body cam footage, and they're very transparent.
Correct. LAPD and another one, Santa Ana PD from Orange County. I would say, because I follow them all, and I try to follow them all and see what they're doing. I would say they're probably one of the top two when it comes to sharing content on social media, including TikTok, by the way. And I think that's great. I think that's awesome. And I think more agencies need to do that. LAPD, they try to do their best, but they just get a bad rap, which that's just the politics behind it.
It's crazy because they are super transparent. You'll see some of their videos. They'll have like 6 angles of the body cam footage for
Well,
like
that goes back to what I was talking about after Rodney King.
Yeah.
And they went through the consent decree. They came out of there as one of the best agencies. And when 2020 happened, instead of reminding the world of everything good that they have done, oh, well, I'm sorry that this happened. We'll try to be better. Like, no. Your officers are out there doing a great job. Stand up and talk about it. Sell your story.
Well, thank you so much for coming by, Oscar. I really appreciate it. I know you drove a long way to be here. Let's take a moment right now. If you could just look straight into your camera, let people know where they can find you, your social media, your website, how they can donate to you.
Absolutely. So OscarForSheriff.com, Oscar, the number 4, Sheriff.com. I also have all the social media, Instagram, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter. I have TikTok as well. You're going to find me there, and you have the links in the bio. I put content on a weekly basis. I try on a daily basis as well as weekly, of course, and you'll be able to see where I stand in many of the issues there. Go there. You can see my positions. You can donate, and there's links to volunteer. LA County is huge, so I can definitely use the help, not only spreading the word, but also through donations for the campaign.
So yeah, make sure you guys donate. Go visit. If you can volunteer. We need more candidates like Oscar.
Thank you.
People who are lifelong public servants, devoted to this country, people who have ideas and who stand by American principles. Because if we don't have people like him, then we got the Gascons of the world.
Yes.
That's what we get.
No more Gascons.
No more Gascons. We need law and order in this country more
Thank you.
than ever, because it's I think it was a cornerstone of what made this country great. People like to, there's always this conversation. Is it the Constitution or is it the American people? I think it's a little bit of both, but it's the culture of upholding law and order that has made this country as successful as it is.
And it was the Constitution that made the American people, because before that, we're all British subjects. It was the Constitution that made us citizens. And without that Constitution, we're not going to be citizens. We're gonna go back to being subjects, not of the British, but of a political class.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Oscar.